Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. This evening we have an exemplary person, Miss Annette Budzban. She's a Christian author, religious columnist, she's a nurse, a life coach, a speaker. She's a wife and mother and grandmother. Mrs. Budzban is from Lakeville, Illinois, and she is a person that you should know. I'd like to say at the top of the program, I want to thank our producer of this show, Mrs. Patricia Adams from North Chicago, Illinois. Greetings, Mrs. Budzban.
Hello. We're
very happy that you've taken time for your busy schedule. It's by the grace of God that we're together, and I didn't miss out on any opportunity. You were a guest on my radio program last week, but that was only 30 minutes, and I was sure we needed more time, so we have an hour tonight for you to take myself and also my listening audience on a spiritual journey. Comcast Studio is approximately 100,000 people, Channel 17, and it airs every Thursday night, 7 o'clock, and also Kenosha County, and as well as Cook County, CAN TV in Cook County, Time Warner TV in Kenosha. So I want you to start off by telling our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. It's really a joy to be here. And first, I'd like to start out with asking the audience a couple of questions. One, I'd like to ask them, do you have a dream or a passionate desire that you're longing to see fulfilled? And I want you to stop and think about it for a moment. Ponder it. Just close your eyes, let your mind wander, and think about that impossible dream. I want you to dream that impossible dream. Dreams are really important, and recently at a speaking engagement, the hostess called me a dream liver. And I was really surprised about that, and I thought back and I realized that 17 years ago, just about this time, I would have told you that that was an impossibility. At that time, I was in the prime of my career as a nurse manager, and I had a side business. I was an entrepreneur as a childbirth educator, and I did that one night a week for 16 years.
Okay.
And I had a dream and a desire to start to make a career change. And that career change was due to the fact that I had a strong faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I enjoyed praying with my patients as a nurse, and I thought how wonderful it would be to be a congregational health nurse. Now, most people don't know what that is, and a congregational health nurse is placed in a church congregation, usually employed by a hospital. There's a few hospitals in this area that have a program for that.
Okay.
They place you in a congregation where you're a good fit, and there you're able to do health education as a nurse, but you're also able to utilize spiritual principles such as the practice of prayer, communion, and do sick visitation. And because I really had a strong faith, that career choice really appealed to me. So I made a move, and I was employed by a hospital in the area as a nurse manager. I'm hoping that maybe that would help me get an in to be able to get into the parish nurse program.
Okay.
Well, I went for 2 interviews, and nothing turned up. I still didn't give up my dream, but I kind of pushed it on the back burner because I was a single divorced mom of about 10 years at the time. I was raising 3 rambunctious teenage sons on my own, so having 5 children of your own, you can imagine how difficult and challenging that could be at times. So I kind of pushed that dream aside, and my other dream, which was to have Mr. Right, the man of my dreams, come into my life. Well, one day I was home and I was just doing some chores around the house, and there was a knock at my door. And I opened the door, and it turns out that a man that I had met in a church drama group a few years before was standing on the other side. And it turned out that he was, and he still is today, the man of my dreams.
Okay.
We started dating from that day forward, and that was, like I said, about this time of the year. And then the following Valentine's Day, we had a wonderful candlelight wedding. And we had all kinds of dreams and visions. After our candlelight service, we sat quietly in the sanctuary by ourselves and we just talked about our plans and dreams for the future, family times together and vacations and all the wonderful career things that we wanted to do. But you know what? Our dreams didn't turn out like we planned. So I want to just kind of go back a few years and fill you in on what occurred that was the stumbling block to our dreams. Well, just before I met or started dating my husband, Jeff, I was diagnosed with an illness, and it's called environmental illness. I started having all kinds of strange reactions to foods that I was eating, foods I'd been eating for years. As a matter of fact, many people will ask me when they hear my story, oh, did you have problems with allergies or sensitivities as a child? And no, up until that point, I was completely healthy. Well, I started having various symptoms. Some of them really too strange and numerous to mention, but I did start having problems with when I would eat foods, try to take medications, and things in the environment such as molds, car exhausts, just some of the other environmental pollens and things. And I'd have various symptoms such as when I'd ride in the car, I'd get real sleepy, I'd have really bad pain in my feet and my hands. So sleepy I thought I was almost going to pass out or become comatose. When I would eat, I'd have various symptoms, rashes, blisters in my mouth, my tongue would swell. When I tried to take the medications to prevent those symptoms from happening, I would just get sick and I'd feel like I was gonna pass out. So I had a lot of incapacitating sensitivities. So now that my new husband was at my side, we were going to continue to venture out and find some other doctors to help with all these incapacitating symptoms I was having. Well, after a short period of time, our hopes diminished, our savings dwindled down to nothing, and our happily ever after turned into a nightmare because I became housebound with my illness. Can you imagine what it's like to be totally housebound?
Yeah, how long were you housebound?
Well, as my story goes on, I'll fill you in that I was housebound for a total of 8 to 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big wow.
Wow, wow.
And within a month after I became housebound, there I was, my oldest sister died. A week to the day later, my father passed away. So I lost my beloved family, my health, my career, and my weekly paycheck, which is extremely important. Then besides all that, I was adjusting to a new marriage. I was in a new neighborhood. I was a new empty nester because with my new marriage, my sons who were just about at that right age kind of flew the nest. And then to top all these changes off, my friend since the 5th grade called me one day to tell me that her husband got a new job in another state and in 6 weeks they'd be moving. So with all of that, I fell into a depression. I felt isolated, I felt fearful, I felt alone. And there were so many changes that were going on in my life at the time, and there were so many needs that I had. And I really did not know exactly what to do. And then I sat one day and I turned to my one source of comfort and hope. Because as a child, something really special had happened. My parents took me to church and I went to Sunday school and I heard stories, Bible stories about Jesus. And I heard that I was a sinner and that the penalty for my sin would be eternal separation from God. In a place that I would rather not go. And so I heard about Jesus and I turned my life over to him. I asked him to be my Lord and my Savior. I'd heard that he died on the cross to take the penalty of my sin. And then I could be, through believing in him, reconciled unto God, have a relationship with him, and talk with him and believe in him. So I received that, and it says that in the Bible that through Jesus Christ we have a free gift from God. It's not by works that any of us boast about it.
Okay.
That's the wonderful thing about it. It just simply comes to us through our believing. The works that we do in life are the things that God places in our heart that help to fulfill our destiny or our purpose, His plan for us. So as I sat there, I reminisced about how I'd invited Jesus into my life. And I knew that Jesus healed. I heard a lot of stories about Him healing, and He'd called me into a healing profession. I'd prayed for patients, and I'd seen many people healed. So I knew Jesus as a real living presence in my life. But you know, now I was facing the most difficult time of my life that I'd ever faced. And I still had to wonder, what would He do for me? I wondered, would He heal me? I knew He healed other people, but what about me? What were His plans for my life? And if He would heal me, how long would it take? How long would I have to wait? Well, we know the answer to that. So what I did was each morning, just before the sun came up, I would make my way to the sofa, and I would take my Bible with me, and I'd sit there, and I'd read my Bible, and I would pray. Well, one morning when I sat there, I closed my eyes to listen, and I heard a still small voice come from within, kind of that small thought that comes softly, and it said, "Write." And instantly I was amazed, and I said, "Well, Lord, I'm a nurse, not a writer."
Right.
So then I quieted myself again and closed my eyes, and the thought came back a second time, and it was more definitive the next time, and it said, "Write." And so I thought, okay, I'm going to test this thought out just a little bit further. I like to just kind of push the limits here. And I said, "Lord, if this is really You, and You're telling me to write, then send me something to write with." I didn't have a computer at the time. I had no typewriter, and I didn't have my weekly paycheck to buy one. And so I said, you know, give me something to write with at no cost to me. Well, with that request, about a month later, my sister called me one day and she said, "I just bought a new computer. How would you like my word processor?" Well, I was in awe, and I realized that my request had been granted. And I think about that, and I realize that God many times places desires in our heart, and He wants us to pray them through and make them manifest in our life. After that, when I would do my Bible study, I started coming across passages about things such as gifts, abilities, talents, and purpose. And that's when I really started learning that God has a specific purpose for each of our lives. And I found a passage in Psalm 57 that says, "Lord, fulfill Your purpose for me." And I started reading that and praying that on a daily basis, and I still pray it many times now. And actually what I add to that is, fulfill Your purpose for me as a wife and a mother, a grandmother, as an author, speaker. So I kind of mention and tag on to that every purpose that I have in my life and any that He wants to add. Well, there I was starting to think about little inspirational writings, things that I wanted to write, things I wanted to pass on to others, what I was learning in my Bible time each day, in my prayer time. And one day my husband came home from shopping, and he gave me a package, and inside the package was some celery green colored angel stationery.
Oh, okay.
And it had envelopes to match.
Okay. This is the angel stationery that will show our listening audience about this. Okay. So now, what does this mean to you there?
Okay.
There we go, it's on the screen.
There's the beautiful angel stationery, and it had envelopes to match.
Okay.
Okay. So after that, I took that stationery and I started writing my inspirational messages to my friends. And I started mailing them out. And they'd tell me, oh, I got just the right message on the right day. Others would say, oh, I love these little angelopes, they would call them, when they show up in my mailbox. And I realized that God was directing me to a new purpose in my life, a whole new purpose in my writing.
Amazing.
Then after a period of time, I was reading my Bible, and I came across 2 words. They said, go publish. And I just knew that I was being inspired to do something more with my writing at this point. I also came across a scripture that says, the women who publish the word are a great host. Now it's funny because when I shared those verses with my friends, they go, who knew that the word publish was even in the Bible? But I found through some of those experiences too, how we open our Bible and we need to read it as a personal message to us. Not just God overall speaking his plan, which it is that, but he will direct us and guide us personally for our lives. And that was something that I also learned during that time.
Some people may think the Bible is a novel that they can read from front to end, but actually just open it up and he'll reveal what he wants you to know, right? And that's what happened with you now.
Yes.
Now, was this a book that you wrote, one of the books that you wrote?
Life-changing inspiration.
Life-changing inspiration?
Yes, and what happened after I heard the words go publish, I asked a friend of mine who worked with a nurse that her husband was involved with he was an editor at a Christian publishing company. And I asked her if she could get some information for me on how I could go about getting published. She gave me a list of things to do, and so I started making submissions. And you can imagine my elation when my first acceptance letter for an article that I had submitted to a magazine got published. And since then, I had been published in places such as Guidepost Angels on Earth, their magazine and their books, Chicken Soup for the Soul books, Evangel, Gem, Purpose, Psychology for Living, many Christian devotional books, many guides, some of the Sunday school papers that they hand out at the churches each Sunday. And then my first book, which is Life-Changing Inspirations, is a collection of many of the inspirations that I first sent out to my friends. Also, I have the book Spend a Moment with God. They're showing that on the screen. Thank you. And then I also just recently did a CD which is called Dream Big, Make Your Dreams Reality. And that tells my testimony that we're talking about here. And I cover 13 steps that, the Lord showed me how to help make my dreams reality. I pass them on to others. And now when I go out and speak, that's one of my big topics that I speak on is my Dream Big topic. So I started, my first book was published. Then I started realizing that once my book was published, I needed to do something with it. Something to market myself. Here I am, housebound, wondering how to go about doing all these things, and it was interesting because all the information just came.
Amazing.
Well, one day, my husband came home from grocery shopping, and you could see at this point he was getting really good at running errands and shopping. And he placed a paper on the table, and I picked it up, and I looked at the headline, and it said Daily Herald. And I said, what is this? Is this a new paper? Because I was familiar with another paper in the community. And he said, oh, no, it's not new. It's been around for a long time. I used to deliver them several years ago. Well, I kind of instinctively knew what to do. I opened the paper up to the name and the number of the editor, and I called and I said, I'm a nurse that became housebound with an illness, and I felt a call to write, and I just had my first book published, and I have a little writing ministry. Would you be interested in doing a feature story? And the editor said, sure. So a few weeks later, my feature story was published, and it says, Illness Inspires Creation of Writing Ministry. I think they'll show you a close-up on the screen there.
Right. And that's just by calling the the writer at the was at the local paper. Was that the Daily Herald?
Yeah, I called the Daily Herald, and I talked to the editor, and I just told them a little bit about myself, and they said, sure, we would be interested in doing an interview. They did a phone interview with me, and then someone came out, took a picture, and that was the article that was published.
Can I mention at this point, the environmental problem that you had, was that contagious?
No, it was not. It was no different than somebody that has severe allergies. Actually, I would say it's kind of similar to, many people have heard that story about the boy in the bubble.
Okay.
How he was the one that had, you know, the sensitivities and the problems with the things in the environment because of his immune system.
Okay.
It's
okay.
something that functions like that.
Okay.
So they did the feature story, and then I had an idea, and I thought, I wonder if they'd be interested in doing a column with my inspirations that I'm sending out to my friends. And I called the editor back, and I asked, and he said, send me some samples. He read them over, and he said, I think I can use these.
Ah.
And so it will be, August 1st will be 11 years that my column, Inspirations, has appeared in the Daily Herald.
Daily.
Yes, the Daily Herald, and it's on Fridays. It also appears in the Zion Benton News. About 6 months after it appeared in the Daily Herald, it got picked up with the Zion Benton News as well. It's also appeared in many Sunday school papers, other various newspapers across the country from time to time.
Then this was God training you for 8 years then, right?
Yes, for 8 years.
To be the author,
yes.
the writer.
Yes, spending my time with him.
I have to say this, we have an awesome God. Awesome. And he's, our thoughts are not his thoughts are not our thoughts, you know, and you, I mentioned that you were author and columnist, nurse, life coach, speaker, wife, mother and grandmother, you know, but the Lord is using you for his glory.
Yes, it's all about him.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing my writing, and you know, there were still a lot of days that, you know, I would still get down and depressed. Some days it was still a little bit, I had to really push myself to get out of bed, and I was still dealing with some of the symptoms when I'd try to eat or take some medication or do something. And one day when I was doing my Bible reading, I came across a story about a man named Gideon. And Gideon was in a battle, and he needed a sign from God. He wanted a sign of victory to know if he was going to be victorious in this battle. And I thought, you know, that's just what I need. I need a sign from God to keep me going, to help me to know, am I going to win this battle? So I stopped for a moment and I thought, okay, God, I'm going to ask you to give me a sign if I'm going to be physically healed. And I want to be something unusual, so like a deer in my backyard. Now, I live in a high residential area, and it's not real likely that a deer is going to come in my backyard. I do have a little patch of woods behind my backyard, but I asked my neighbor who had lived there for 20 years, and she said she'd never seen any deer roaming around in the backyard, so I thought that was pretty safe to ask. And I'd even shared that prayer request with my husband, and we both prayed about it together. Well, one Sunday afternoon, and it was a beautiful summer day, and usually Jeff would mow the lawn on Sunday afternoons, but that day in particular he just thought, you know, I'm going to go relax and watch the NASCAR races. Well, about mid-race, he got up and he went into the kitchen, and he said, Annette, hurry up, come here really quick, but be real quiet because there's a deer in our backyard.
Amazing.
Well, you can imagine my heart leapt in my chest, and I couldn't get to the window fast enough. And there he was. I just looked at my deer. He was in there nibbling from a bird feeder a friend of mine had given me. Hung around for about 20 minutes, and we were able to get it on videotape. So then from time to time I'd kind of watch the videotape, and it was a reminder for me of God's promise. And the following year for my birthday, Jeff bought me one of those concrete statues of a deer that you put in your yard. And he put it in the backyard right in the same spot where I'd seen my deer. So then every time I went to the kitchen window, I would look at that deer, and I named the deer Promise. And I would say to God, there's your promise to me for my healing. But you know, I'd been given that promise. but I still didn't know when it was going to happen. It was day after day, month after month, year after year, and now it had been about 4 years at that point that I had been housebound. There wasn't a lot I could do. Sometimes I'd have a home visit from a doctor or a telephone visit. I'd tried a few new things, but I'd still wind up with the same old symptoms and sensitivities that I had. So I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. So there were still times that tears stained my pillow at night, but I kept up my faith. And I kept up believing. That's what we have to remember, is even though we have our down moments, we have to get ourselves back up.
You can't hurry God.
No, you can't hurry him. You're absolutely right. And so during that time, you know, I missed out on special occasions with my children, weddings, birth of grandchildren, all kinds of special gatherings. But you know, what really helped me during that time also was my new purpose for writing. My readers were my lifeline to the outside world, and they really kept me going. And sometimes I'd get comments on how an article encouraged someone, or I'd get a request, could you write something about this topic? And just knowing that there were people out there that I was helping as God was helping me. You know, how we pass that on. Well, you know, being housebound during that time, I kind of pushed my nursing aside. I've always kept my nursing license active because I paid a dear price for that. And it'll always be a part of who I am. But I felt like, you know, I'm not nursing in a hospital or in the practical sense. And there was a nursing publication that would come to me often. It's a free publication, and usually I just kind of go from the mailbox into the trash can, because I thought, well, I'm not actively nursing. There's nothing in there I want to read. And I even tried to cancel the subscription one time, but it still kept coming. Well, one day I decided to open it up when it came, and I opened it up to an article that read, Entrepreneurial Fire. And it said, it talked about nurses that write, speak, and life coach. And I thought, well, I'm a nurse, I write, I think God is calling me to speak, although I was housebound, I didn't know how that was going to happen. And there was a life coaching. And I really didn't know at the point what a life coach was, and I'm not sure if you know much about life coaching or our audience does, but it said in the article that nurses made great life coaches because we help establish goals for people. As a nurse in practice, I helped people establish health goals all the time. What a life coach will do is they'll help you establish goals to move forward. You can achieve spiritual goals or any type of personal goals as well. I've helped people with career goals, with spiritual growth, which that's one of my favorite. And in there, I just help people to learn how to pray, listen to God, you know, establish some goals for their Bible reading. And with personal goals, you can do relational. I've helped people overcoming grief. Then I heard about doing teleseminars. I don't know if anybody knows what a teleseminar is. I didn't at the time. I didn't know what a life coach was or a teleseminar. But you know, it's interesting, when God puts something in your path, all of a sudden it keeps coming to you. And everywhere you look, it seems like you get that information. And I came across a woman who, over the internet, from a writing site, and she talked to me about, have you heard about teleseminars? And I was like, no. And she kind of told me how to go about it and what it is. It's like a huge conference call. And you can talk to people all over the United States at one time. So I set that up. I gave people the date, the time, the subject, and I started doing teleseminars. And that was my first way of speaking to others. And I just teach some of the things, again, that I was learning, that I was writing. And I realized with all this information that more pieces to my purpose were being discovered, that He was revealing more to me through all of that. And one day a friend said to me, Annette, you're no longer a childbirth educator, but you're educating people to birth their God-given dreams and visions.
Fantastic.
And I really like that. Well, now, more days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and now it had been about 8 to 9 years since I'd become housebound. And at that point in time, my symptoms were growing worse. More adversity was hitting my family. One of my sons was diagnosed with a very serious illness, and I really wanted to be able to be with him and be of some help. Others were suffering great losses. One lost a business. You know, it was back in 2007 when things started taking a turn, and my family was really feeling that. And you know, I noticed that my husband was starting to show signs of depression. And I realized that we were no longer the thriving newlyweds that we had dreamt of being. And as I watched him, I realized that his dream for my healing was fading. And I have to be honest, there were sometimes days that I wondered, was this an elusive dream? What was really going on here? Because I didn't see anything happening. Well, one day I was sitting in the chair and I looked over in the corner and there was a book basket that I keep there. And in that basket was a book that caught my attention, and it said 1001 Ways to Romance Your Mate. And I realized that I bought that book when Jeff and I were newlyweds. So I picked it up and I started just kind of rifling through the book and putting a few little tidbits into practice, like giving him notes and things. Well, then a couple of weeks later in my prayer time, came the big message. You know, I always thought that God was going to heal me and I'd go out. God doesn't always do things the way that we think he's going to.
Right.
In my prayer time, God said, I want you to go back to church with your husband. And I thought, go back to church with my husband? Lord, you know I'm housebound. How am I going to do that?
Right.
And then, you know, a little bit of my nursing knowledge started kicking in. Well, you know, I've been in for a while. Sometimes in things such as allergy sensitivities, environmental illness, your body will go through what they call as a detoxing. Sometimes if you're away from a particular thing that you've been sensitive to, like I had a terrible time outside or riding in the car because of the car exhausts, your body will build up a sensitivity to that. So I'm thinking, I don't know if that's what happened. However God wants to do it, he can do it. So I made a goal, and 2 weeks later, after that prayer, I took a step of faith to go back to church with my husband. When I stepped into the van, my husband says, "Are you ready for this?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And I made it to church. Some of my symptoms I noticed starting to come up, and then I just held on to healing scriptures. There's Bible passages in the Bible that talk about God as our healer. And I would hold on to things like, I will restore your health and heal your wounds. And as we drove to church that day and I'd feel maybe a little bit of those symptoms trying to come back, I'd hold on to those passages. I made it into church and I made it back, and I realized that I'd been out of my house for the first time in like 8 to 9 years. And it was just amazing. And it was interesting because it was 5 years ago, just about this time, because it was just about my birthday. And so I sat in my chair and I realized I'm not going to let it stop here. So I started walking outside in my driveway 5 minutes every day, then 10 minutes every day, then 15 minutes. And by the end of the summer, I found that I could stay outside for long, extended periods of time. Then a friend of mine introduced me to a nutritional biochemist, and he helped me to be able to start to take a few little supplements that would help me. And you know, most people, they take a capsule. Well, with me, my sensitivities, I had to start very little, and it took me 6 months to take one whole capsule of something. And to me, that was just amazing, because I didn't think I'd ever be able to take a whole capsule of anything. And then one day, I kind of noticed my wedding photo on a tabletop. I looked at it and I saw that vibrant young woman who had dark hair and a rosy complexion and a beautiful dress on. I kind of looked at the mirror and I saw my complexion had faded. I looked down at my dress. It was an old house dress I was wearing. And I thought, you know, Lord, I want to look attractive again. So I researched, there were new minerals makeups, things that didn't have chemical components in them. And I was able to utilize those. So there was a lot of new technology also making its way that was going to help me during that time that I was housebound. And then my sister, bless her heart, she brought over a box of lovely clothes one day, and some of them still had the price tags on them. I love big sister hand-me-downs like that. And I'd put on a blue sparkly top, and I just noticed that my spirits were lifting, my husband's spirits were lifting, and what I realized was with all of that, God was restoring my life. That was extremely important. Well, then about 6 months after my stepping out and going back to church, I started getting some speaking engagements. Actually, the first one, believe it or not, was at a mortgage company, who the man that I knew, he said, "We need a little boost of hope over here. Could you come and talk at one of our board meetings?" And I saw God taking me just unusual places out in the community. Yes, I've spoken at a lot of church groups, women's church groups, seniors groups, groups for volunteers, groups for job seekers, grief groups. I've done retreats, moms groups, a variety of things.
So these are mainly motivational speeches.
Yes, mostly motivational speeches. And I was invited, and I spoke at Cancer Treatment Centers of America for their conference for their nationwide volunteers. That was really a great honor. And then a career dream from my past was being fulfilled. Because 2 years in a row, I was asked to speak to the Congregational Health Nurse Conference at Concordia University in Mequon.
Fantastic.
And that was something I'd never dreamed of doing. I wanted to be a congregational health nurse. I didn't know that I was going to be speaking to them about how to take their ministry beyond the church walls. And so I saw that God was making me that congregational health nurse that I wanted to be, only He was showing me that the dream was bigger than I'd ever imagined it to be.
He's using you for His glory.
Yes, it's all about Him. And I was limiting Him by thinking that I was going to be teaching and praying and administering communion in a church congregation. And He showed me that the whole world is our congregation as we go out there.
Wow.
And so, and then a very special dream came true when I was able to attend my grandson's graduation. One of those special family occasions that I'd missed out on for so many years.
Well, I can say that the things you do for yourself are gone when you are gone. But the things that you do for others remain as your legacy.
Yes.
So you have a great legacy that you're leaving because you're serving others and not yourself. And I think that's a great compliment. What about what should the readers glean from your book after reading Spending a Moment from God? What do you want them to conclude from the book?
Okay, Spend a Moment with God was the second book that I wrote. And actually, I spent about 6 months on this book.
Okay.
And I can cover a few of the table of contents, if you'd like.
Okay.
And these are things that I believe that you glean when you spend a moment with God. And I was spending many moments with God, so I felt like there were a lot of things that He was showing me. And I did a lot of growing spiritually during that time. Some of those things are, when you spend a moment with God, you get to know God intimately. You really are able to develop a relationship with Him, you know, learning a little bit how to hear from Him and walking closer with Him. You also learn how to renew your mind. And there's a scripture that He brought me to that said, be transformed by the entire renewing of your mind. So we have to change our mindset. Just like I said, I was limiting myself thinking one day I wanted to be in a church congregation, and He was like, oh, I got to renew your mind because there's something bigger that I have for you. Also, He gives us truth that sets us free. You know, all of a sudden enlightenment or revelation comes about an area in our life where we were deceived. We were doing something one way thinking it was the right thing to do, only to find out that it wasn't. And so when God, he starts to reveal truth to us and not to condemn us because he loves us. He wants to convict us. It says in the scriptures, the Holy Spirit convicts and convinces us of our sins and our wrongdoing so that we can change them, so we can actually find freedom. And that's what the truth does. Some people are even bound just by insecurities, you know, low self-esteem, I don't look good, or I'm not good enough. And God wants to transform that thinking into, I am good enough, and God has a specific plan and purpose for me. You know, I'm here talking today, and this seems like it's about me. But as you pointed out many times, it's really about God. And that's one of the big things God taught me during my time of being housebound too. It wasn't about self. Just like when I talked about, I had to, no matter how I felt, I had to meet the needs of my family still. I had to romance my husband. There were things I had to do. It wasn't all about me and poor pitiful me and pay attention to me.
We speak about a purpose-driven life. I mean, God put us here. Everyone has to know what are their purpose, because we have a purpose-driven life, you know. And some people spend a lifetime trying to find that out. But like you say, if you, it's a renewing of mind, and you let God control you, control your body, then you will know what your purpose of life is. It's not. You can't. I can tell everybody, I've never seen a Brinks truck behind a hearse yet. You know,
Yes.
It's not about you. You know, it's about what you know, giving glory to God.
Yes, and carrying all your stuff. The other thing about the purpose is you find that it changes throughout our life.
Okay.
In different seasons, in different times of our life. It tells us in scriptures that there's a time for every season, a time for every purpose, and every activity, it says in one version of the Bible, under heaven. So I think about there were a day when my purpose was being a wife and a mother. Then God added on to my purpose nursing and, you know, eventually all those other things, just as you find in your own life.
Yes.
And different talents, abilities surface at different times in your life, which was something I found out with the writing.
I never dreamed that I'd be doing the radio and TV. And that takes up my time now. This is what God is using me. I'm not doing any of the, He preparing me for all the different jobs that I had in employment, preparing me for this. And this is no pay. I just enjoy doing it for the glory of God.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you find that when you discover your purpose, just as you said, it's something that you just really enjoy doing.
Yeah,
You get such an enjoyment, you give it a lot. I've started going out, and besides doing speaking where I'm invited to speak, I've started speaking at some of the local Panera's that have community rooms, and I'll announce it on my website. I send out email announcements, and I put it in the paper, and many of my readers will come, and that's just a free conference that I give out to the community, like you said, giving something back to others. And, you know, it's about giving. And like you said, I enjoy doing it so much. Doing it for free is fine.
Right.
I mean, you just do it for the enjoyment and the glory of God, because God is all about joy.
We get near the end of our program. What about new books that you're working on? You want to
Okay, I have Life-Changing Inspirations. I Spend a Moment with God. And then I have a new CD, and it's called Dream Big, Make Your Dreams Reality. And here I talk about 13 steps that help you to make your dream a reality. And when I go out and speak at the Panera's, many times I'll do this topic, or if somebody invites me to speak, I'll do this topic. There's several other topics. I can talk about the benefits of spending a moment with God that are in my book. And with Dream Big, as I said, there's 13 steps. And I didn't know how much time we had. I didn't know if you wanted me to mention them at all, or...
Well, you can mention them. We have about 5 minutes left.
Step number 1, you know, to develop a relationship with God, the dream giver. We have to learn how to hear from Him, because He's actually the relationship to our dreams. Change changes the link to our dreams. And rejection, it's a new redirection to your dream. Write the vision. It's the blueprint to your dream. Manage your emotions and take charge of your dreams. And this is what you were talking about. Let nothing be wasted. Use old skills and new skills to launch your dreams.
Okay.
And that's just a few of the steps that I cover in the 13 steps.
You know, we have people going through life not knowing what God created them to be. Why did God create man?
God created man so that he could have a relationship with someone, so that he wasn't alone and by himself. And it's all about relationship. First, our relationship with God, and then our relationship with others, and how God also works through us to relate to others.
It's amazing. Then he saw that man was alone, so what did he do? He created woman, right?
Yes.
You know, and now woman is to be his helpmeet.
Yes.
Not to be the leader of the man, right?
Yes, she's to be his helpmate, not to be his leader. And I've also heard because she was taken from his side, she's to be at his side.
Okay, okay. That's fantastic. Well, it sounds like you know your purpose in life.
Yes.
You know, that's it. That's the it. Okay, I want to thank you very much for sharing, and I'm sure that our listening audience, I know I have been benefited, and I'm sure our listening audience have been benefited also. In the importance of giving testimonies, how would that help others?
Giving testimonies shows others what God's done in our life and shows them what he wants to do in their life.
Okay.
It helps them to identify with the fact that, you know, if I have a purpose if God has a purpose for me, he has a purpose for your audience as well. Each person out there has a God-given purpose.
I don't want to end the program without talking about the contact. How do people contact you for books and about making speaking engagements? Because I'm sure they're very anxious to find out, to have you come and speak to groups.
They can contact me through my website, AnnetteBudzban.com.
Okay.
They can email me at AnnetteBudzban@AOL.com. Or they can call me, and I'll give you, my phone number is 847-543-8413. So those are 3 different ways they can contact me.
Thank you for sharing your challenging experiences that you've had during your life. You had many challenging experiences, and you have shared those with us, and I'm sure our listening audience we're going to be happy to contact you through the website and your telephone number and so forth for you. I thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And I think you have something you want to share. We have our producer here, Patricia Adams. She didn't want to be on the program, but she came out here to support you. And as a matter of fact, you met her through church activity?
Yes, Calvary Harvest.
Oh, okay, okay. Is that the one that used to be on Belvedere? And who are you located?
It did at one time. We're now located on Stern School Road in Gurnee.
Wow, we have a new facility out there?
Beautiful. Yes.
So if someone want to visit, it's located where now, Stern School?
It's on Stern School Road in Gurnee.
Yes, okay, because they built a new school out there too.
Yes, a church and school.
So you have some.
Yes, I'd like to present you and Daisy with some flowers, a nice gift. I appreciate all your hospitality and all the things that you do in the community.
Well, it's God-given. I think Patricia Adams is the one that probably should.
I have some flowers
you have some for her
Patricia
too,
as well.
Okay.
She's been a great producer and promoter for me, and I just appreciate her.
This will be a shock to her, and I'm not going to have her come out. She's operating with the my staff in the control room. That she came out to support you, and I also will share this immediately with Dr. Daisy Brooks. I guess she's gonna be surprised. You know, she goes, "What did I do to receive this?" You know, but you know about our background, her background, things that
Yes.
she's been doing. Okay, I appreciate your invitation to speak on your radio and TV broadcasts. What a wonderful and creative way you use your gift of hospitality. This is what it's all about. And
Yes.
I really appreciate that. May God richly bless your endeavors as you reach out and enrich the lives of others in the community. Blessing, Annette Budzban. Give my warm regards to your wife, and I will sure do that. So what's new on the horizon for, what do you do in your leisure time? I guess writing, I guess, right?
Right. I enjoy doing things with my family, which seem like we've lately had a string of birthdays and
Okay.
things like that, and we have a graduation going on, and otherwise writing, and I enjoy going out in the community and speaking, and
This is fantastic. What God has for you is for you, right?
yes.
And I think we can all share that with our listening audience, and also things that you've experienced in the past. We may say that yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, because you don't know what God has for you. God is not through with you yet, but today is the present, and that's the reason we call it a gift. But tell us about Patricia Adams. She's a fantastic person, right?
Patricia Adams is a fantastic person. One of the things I like to say about Patricia is a word that describes her is faithful.
Okay.
And she's faithful to a task. If she's assigned a task, she's faithful to see that task through to the finish. She does her work with excellence.
Okay.
And that's a very important Christian attribute.
Okay.
Excellence, for us to grow in excellence in life and the things we do.
Right. What about Calvary? Is it Calvary Temple?
Calvary Christian Center.
Oh, it's
I'm sorry, Calvary Harvest.
Calvary Harvest
Yes.
now. Tell us about what's the mission of why would a person want to become a part of that Calvary Harvest?
We reach out to all different age levels. We have a seniors group there. There's a children's preschool.
Okay.
We have nursery on Sundays. The love of God is expressed there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, goodness, kindness, gentleness,
Oh, sounds like it's
self-control. Very spirit-filled.
Gifts,
Yes,
spiritual gifts,
get
yeah.
spiritual gifts. And a wonderful devoted pastor, great music.
Mm-hmm.
That is, the worship is wonderful and enlightening, and we take our time in that. It's not rushed. The service isn't rushed from beginning to end. We minister to each other. There's healing, prayer for healing available. Communion is given, and they're very family oriented.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that at the end of your book, though, you have helpful hints and hindrances.
We might spend a moment with God. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So actually, you were thinking of the listening audience and also the readers too.
Yes, and what it is in each chapter, you will find at the back, there's helpful hints. In other words, if you're wanting to know, in my chapter, Lord, teach me how to pray.
Okay.
There's helpful hints that can guide you through in how to establish a prayer life if you're not familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a prayer life, helpful hints that can help you to increase or improve your prayer life.
Mm-hmm.
There's hindrances also at the back, and what we don't realize is there's things that hinder us from receiving our blessing or from growing or developing in our spiritual life. And so I talk about also what some of those hindrances may be in each particular topic that I talk about.
Okay, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we've been talking with Annette Budzban from Lakeville, Illinois. She's a Christian author, religious columnist, and Daily Herald, the Zion Bent News,
Yes.
and so forth. She's a nurse, life coach, a speaker, wife, mother, and grandmother. And she's been sharing with us her life experiences.
Yes.
She's an exemplary person, and we want to thank Patricia Adams, a local resident from North Chicago, and a member of your church, because you know I like outstanding people. I'm looking at, I interview people all over the country, you know, that Lake County should know. And you are definitely a person Lake County should know. So thank you for the lovely flowers, and I will share them with the wife in a few minutes when I go home. And I'm sure Pat is going to be a surprise and to receive her gift there too. You are a flower yourself. You're a beautiful person, and thank God for you that you are using your skills for God's glory. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host.